Hello, my name is Michael Tillotson and I am an author. Today we are going to be talking about Star versus the Forces of Evil. When I first watched Star versus the Forces of Evil, I did so knowing almost nothing about the show. Like, I'd have recognized Star if you showed me a picture of her, but that was the extent that I knew about it. I wasn't expecting to love it all that much, but turns out it's pretty good and I loved almost all of it. So I was shocked when I then saw discussions about it after finishing, only to apparently find that a lot of people really hated the ending, because I really liked it. So I thought we would just talk about that, and I would explain why I liked the ending. Obviously, this video will contain spoilers for Star vs. the Force of Evil. Great show, highly recommend if you haven't seen it. Either way, let's get started. So, when talking about the ending to Star vs. the Forces of Evil, there are three main parts of the ending to talk about. There's the romantic subplot, the multiverse mashup, and destroying the magic. I'll talk about these in the order of what I like the least to what I like the most. And starting us off in that regard is the multiverse mashup. So, the multiverse of Star vs. the Forces of Evil was connected via the realm of magic. Traveling through the realm of magic was the only way to get to another dimension physically, and dimensional scissors were, of course, all forged by Hekapoo and her magic. So when the magic was destroyed, the various universes were cut off from one another. The physical entryway was closed, and the dimensional scissors stopped working. But then they followed this up with a big dimensional explosion that just kind of mashed all the different dimensions together. This was the only part of the ending I explicitly didn't like. See, a lot of the plot line of Star versus the Forces of Evil is about this political upheaval that comes about as Star tries to fight for monster rights. There's a lot of human propaganda that monsters are just these pure evil beings that do nothing but cause chaos. But Star comes to the realization that this is not true and that they're people just like humans. And as a matter of fact, humans are arguably even the bad guys here, because monster is really just a term that refers to any native inhabitant of Muni, and the humans came in and conquered it. Though, in their defense, they didn't come to Muni with that intention, they just kind of wound up stranded and carved out a life for themselves. That still doesn't make them the good guys, but it's moderately better than having come to Muni with the intention to conquer. By the end of Star, things have mostly settled down. Mina and the other Solarians had lost their powers. Moon had mostly kind of stepped down from her whole anti-monster sentiment, and things finally seemed to be on the road to peace. There were hints that there was still going to be conflict in the future because Mina's got good ideas that stick around like a bad fart. But the major threats to monster equality all seemed to have passed. The thing about the universe mashup that really bothers me the most, though, is that this is an even bigger political upheaval than the one that just made up the majority of the show's plotline. Everything we just went through on Muni is basically meaningless, and the monsters are going to have to fight for their rights all over again in a new world that is inevitably just about to be ravaged by a war, most likely worse than what the Solarians just did. Suddenly, the Ponyhead Kingdom might just be down the street from the White House, and who owns that territory now? Even if some of the rulers opt for a more peaceful solution, with all the different universes getting mashed together like this, you can guarantee that others definitely will not. We're supposed to feel happy about this ending, mostly because of Star and Marco finally being together, more on that in a minute. But this ending is far from happy. If some sort of happy ending does come out of this, then it clashes with the rest of the show's plotline, but if a happy ending doesn't come out of this, then the tone of the ending is just radically different from what it should be. It maybe wouldn't have been that bad if it wasn't the ending. If this was the start of the show's final season, they could maybe write in a way that works, but as it is, it's just really you know? But okay, let's move on from that and talk about the romance subplot. I feel like from what I've seen, this is probably one of the more contentious points of the ending. This is the big part that so many people hated from what I've seen, and I can understand why. if I were to choose who ends up together in the end, I would have stuck with Star and Tom. I liked the message that came with Star and Tom's relationship because yes, Tom used to be kind of abusive and he had really bad anger management problems, but he tried really hard over the course of the story to get better, and ultimately this led to Star forgiving him and they had a relatively healthy relationship going on. But at the same time, Tom's problem didn't just disappear. He had to keep working and keep trying, but Star was willing to forgive him and accept him for who he is, and I think that's really sweet. When they eventually broke up though, I was still sort of okay with it. It's not the direction I would have taken the story, but this message of forgiveness never went away. I think it's important that Tom is the one who broke up with Star, not the other way around. Their relationship didn't work out, but it wasn't because Tom was unforgivable or how Tom could never get better. And when Tom did break up with her, she still wanted to be friends, and she still wanted him in her life. The most important part of their relationship from a narrative standpoint, to me, was just that message of forgiveness, and that was still intact at the end. And on top of that, they were still on relatively good terms by the time they went back to Muni. And as far as Star and Marco itself is concerned, it's fine. I feel like it's a bit of the boring default ending, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I'll admit, the breaking of the Blood Moon curse feels a little contradictory with this ending. What was the point of that episode if they're still in love anyway? But other than that, it's fine. It's the ending most of the show is building towards, and it was Marco's whole reason for coming to Muni in the first place, so whatever. We've also just seen how they act throughout most of the show, and they're good for each other. It's the boring default couple, but so is Aang and Katara, and nobody really cares about that one. I guess that's just kind of the risk you run into when making a complicated love triangle plotline. Shipping wars. Fun. But okay. There's one other big part of the ending, and this is the big one that I wanted to talk about. Destroying the magic. So, I love magic. The easiest way for me to like any given piece of media is just to give it a cool magic system, and I'll be like, magic. One Step from Eden, for instance, is a really fun video game, but even though its story is as bare bones as the Realm of Magic after Toffee was done with it, I absolutely love the world and the story just because the magic system is so cool. A cool magic system is genuinely all I need to be interested. So with that in mind, you would think the idea of destroying the magic at the end of Star would be an idea that I would absolutely hate. It's like, you're taking out the coolest part of the world here. But that couldn't be further from the truth. I think it was brilliant. When we first start Star versus the Forces of Evil, our main villain is Ludo, and he was just kind of this goofy Team Rocket style villain. Kind of incompetent, mostly there to serve as comedic relief. But if you really look at Ludo, even in these early parts of the story, he actually tells us an interesting little piece of world building. He wants the wand because it'll supposedly give him the power to take over Muni. And, as a Team Rocket style villain, we probably won't put much stock in this. But if we do, and we should, we get this picture that, at least in Muni, magic is only available to the elite few, and whoever has the magic has the power. And this becomes apparent in Season 2, where Ludo does get the wand, or half of it anyway. With the wand, Ludo, our goofy Team Rocket villain, single-handedly conquered Muni. And this really calls into question, was Ludo and his team actually incompetent, or were they just battling against a force they couldn't hope to win against? And probably a little bit of both, because Toffee succeeded where Ludo fails on literally his first attempt, but it was because he outplayed Star, not because he overpowered her. And I think the ending to Season 1 is really amazing, where Star finally loses the wand, and then Toffee says that he doesn't want it, he wants her to destroy it. We don't know a lot about Toffee at this point, but one thing is very clear. This is someone who's been hurt by magic. And for as much as Toffee is a huge jerk, the fact that he blames magic for what happened to him and not Moon is kind of honorable in a way. He could have gone and extracted vengeance against Moon herself for what she did to him, but he didn't really seem to care about her or the royal family, so long as magic was destroyed. From this point on, the story starts gradually reshaping our view of Star's world. We walk a journey alongside Star and come to the realization that monsters aren't evil at the same time she does, and the villain progression throughout the series feels like this gradual reveal that the true villain at the heart of the world's problems is magic. First we have a monster, Ludo, and then Toffee. Then we have a monster using magic, Ludo again, and then we have a half-monster, half-human using magic, Meteora, and finally the ultimate threat is an army of humans using magic, Mina and her Solarians. And with each of these threats, the danger to the realm is getting worse and worse. Ludo managed to wipe out the Magic High Commission and took over Muni, leading to a lot of pain for a lot of people. Meteora almost killed everyone in Muni, and the Solarians were borderline unstoppable and pretty explicitly wanted to kill all monsters they could get their hands on. Monsters seem to be the initial threat at the beginning of the series, but as the show goes on, it hammers home the idea that the real cause of all of these problems is magic. Whoever has the magic has the power, and nothing anyone says or do can change that. And if two opposing forces both have magic, then anyone nearby just gets caught in a crossfire between two powers they can do nothing to stop. And I love this reveal when Star comes to this realization as well, that Toffee, our first serious villain, was right. The way Toffee went about it was wrong, and Toffee was an awful person, but in the end, he understood that magic was causing chaos and destruction wherever it went, and no matter what comes next, the world would be better off without it. If Star had never stopped Toffee back in Season 2, if she had just let him destroy the magic like he planned, then the villains of 3 and 4 simply wouldn't have existed. We don't know what Toffee had planned to do after destroying the magic. At the end of Season 2, he was just kind of walking away before Star and Ludo murder him. But even if he remained a threat for a while, whatever happened next probably would have been better than the extinction level event that Meteora spawned. But okay, I know what you're thinking. Michael, you say, how can you condone Star committing genocide? Well, that's easy, because she didn't. There were some casualties, yes, but the only people who died were the people who were made entirely of magic. People who only used magic were just fine, they just lost their magic. Case in point, Star and her family. Magic users were already pretty rare. That was kind of the whole problem in the first place, and people who actually are made of magic are even more rare. And like, if the pony heads, the floating disembodied horse heads were just fine, then I'm pretty sure everyone else was fine too. She did kill all of her spells, granted, so her hands aren't like totally clean, but I don't think there were enough spells and unicorns for this to be considered a genocide. All in all, the ending of Star vs. the Forces of Evil isn't perfect by any means, but I think overall it's pretty good and really doesn't deserve all the hate it gets. But that's all from me, and I'll see you in another video.